Welcome to the Rogue Painter. My name's Chris and I'm a millennial Warhammer 40k fanatic, dad to a newborn girl, and living in a constant state of existential crisis, which really does explain why I never grew out of the emo and punk rock phase. And as I explained in a video a couple weeks ago, this goes to sum up exactly why I chose the Raven Guard for my newest Warhammer 40k army, other than the fact that I like their lore and playstyle, but you know, mainly because they're the emo boys. And today I'm going to be continuing on with that army, and we're going to be adding a little bit more pizzazz, a bit more flavor, some weathering, battle damage through decals, which is something that until last night I'd never done, so pretty much fresh at that. And we're going to be applying a series of weathering techniques to make them look worn in and cohesive with the rest of the miniatures. In case you haven't figured out, I like the gritty, grimdark style more so than the pretty edge highlighted heavy metal style. And you know what, to be fair, it's probably just a cop-out because I don't have the brush control, nor do I have any brushes currently with a fine enough tip to be able to do all those bloody edge highlights. Bit of backstory for those of you who haven't already seen it, I recommend going back to my previous video and checking it out, the 7-day combat patrol challenge that I did. But to fill you in briefly, I set myself a crazy, stupid challenge of trying to complete a Raven Guard combat patrol from start to finish in just 7 days. And so having painted about 80% or so of this entire combat patrol, I felt like I was off to a great start. And since then, the last 2 or so weeks, I haven't had as much spare time, mind you, but painting this last 15 to 20% of the models has taken about as long as it took to build and paint the entire combat patrol. But as you'll see in the B-roll footage, stuff's really starting to come together and I'm liking the look of it. As you can see with the decals, they some of them look really good. Some of them, a little bit how you going. Particularly on some of the infiltrators and incursors. Some of the early models that I did, there are some wonky decals. There are some bits that have got little bubbles and raised bits that I either didn't give enough attention to or they didn't quite work out. Some of them are a little bit wonky and chipped, but this is fine because when we do the weathering stage, we're going to be essentially chipping away at the decal anyway, and any bits that still look a bit glossy or bits that are a bit wonky will be fixed up or sort of scrubbed out by the paint that we're going to apply over the top. So this isn't a big issue, but yeah, that's what we're looking at today. I'm going to show you through the last few decals I need to apply, how it's done, some things to look out for based off of mistakes that I made, and then the fun part, weathering. But that's enough talk. Let's get into it. Got a few more decals to apply and hopefully go a little bit better again because now I've got about almost 16 full models worth of experience under my belt. Like I said, it doesn't matter if they're not perfect though because we will fix up and hide a lot of that anyway with the weathering stage, but let's see what we're going to start with. The box art shows them using the decals pretty extensively, like there's a decal on every knee pad and the captain's maybe like one on each, so we'll see if we use that much. I've got one on each shoulder pad. I'll probably put something on the knee pads. And then we're gonna do the big boy, the Invicta Warsuit as well, which should be a bit of fun. So what we've got to do is get a decal sheet out and cut out the decals that we want to use. So I'm gonna get our hobby knife and on our cutting mats and start tracing around the outside of them, leaving a decent amount of space so you don't cut the decal and so that it's easy to grab hold of with your tweezers or whatever you're going to use, as you'll see in the next step. You know what's really frustrating? It's got the number 3 on the box, I believe. Oh, there is no number 3 on the decal sheet. What? This really fucks me up. We're gonna cut out the numbers that we want, so I'm definitely gonna use 5 of the squad 2. So we're gonna cut those out. Probably doing one at a time like this so you don't like accidentally slip and ruin them all, but I'm just gonna do it like this anyway. When we've done that, we're gonna place them onto the wet palette. so they can soak. Doesn't take long. I think about 30 seconds is fine. So these will be more than ready. You can cut them out all at once, but if you think you might run out of time or you might get distracted and have to do something else, I would recommend just doing a few at a time, so that way you don't have them sitting there forever. I don't know if they would eventually like disintegrate or something, or ruin the adhesive. But yeah, I've got a newborn crying downstairs. My wife's with at the moment, but at some stage I'm probably gonna have to go down there. So I'll stick to just like basically one squad at a time and take it from there. All right, and then what we're gonna do next, we need a few products. We have Decal Fix. So Jay from Eons of Battle recommends using Microset and Microsol. I couldn't find any available locally at my hobby stores, and also it was a little bit more expensive than this, so I found the Vallejo version, Decal Fix and then Decal Softener in that order, and also some matte medium. And this is going to help to make the decal slide around so you can reposition it and fix it into the right position easily without ruining it. This is going to soften the decal so it conforms to the irregular or round or bumpy shape, particularly with pauldrons. They're going to be curved and it can be tricky to do without leaving bubbles and raised edges and stuff. And then we're going to come in once it's dry at the end and put some matte medium on to help blend it into the paint job so it doesn't look glossy like a sticker that's been stuck on, like it literally is. Yeah, so this way you don't actually have to use gloss varnish first. I didn't want to get varnish just for this, so I've got this instead, and this doesn't leave anything on the surface. It's kind of like lube, just lubricates the surface so you can slide it around easily, and then it dries, and then the adhesive in the decal just sets. So we're going to put some of this onto the wet palette, just a little bit so we don't waste any. So we've got a wet paintbrush. We have our paper towel, which we're going to use in a second. We're going to fold it into a thick bit of like that, dunk it in the water and bring out most of the water so it's damp. You can see this, I've now folded it in half again, and it's quite thick, and you can mold it around curved surfaces easily, and it's damp, which is important so it doesn't stick to the decal, as I made the mistake of a few times. All right, so this one we're going to be putting the black Raven onto the tilt shield. So we also need some pliers, we also need some tweezers. We're going to grab, nearly forgot, the lubricant. There we go. Okay, now we are good to go. That could have been bad. Probably would have been that bad, to be honest, but it's all right. So we're gonna push that on, holding it there, push it down, and oops, slip the little sucker from here. And we can now fairly easily, apparently easily he says, move this around. No, it's just stuck. Oh my God, this is so annoying. This is not how it's meant to go. This is not how it went last night. Oh, it's moving a little bit, there we go. Okay, so it's not usually that hard, but maybe this was too textured of a surface. Hence, gloss varnish does have some error. It would make it easier, for sure, but I don't want to do that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Something like this, it's pretty flat. You don't really have the issues of getting air bubbles and stuff and it not conforming to the surface, so I'm still going to come in with a paper towel and just gently dab it in. I don't need to put much pressure on because no air bubbles there that I can see. So in other words, it's just bonded to the surface really easily. So for this one, I'm not even going to use any decal softener. That one is good. So I think where I was going wrong before was I wasn't using enough decal fix. So I'm gonna lather it on a little bit more. This is the lube. And then we're going to have another crack at applying one of these. Slide the two off straight onto the knee. And trying to leave a little bit of it, like the edge still raised. That way it's easier to move it around. As soon as it starts to fully conform to the shape, which is difficult to do when it's on a knee pad, it will then be harder to move around, I guess. That's what I think is happening. You can see that's moving around quite easily. Now I'm going to come in and press the hell out of this to flatten it out, get rid of the air bubbles, and get rid of the very wet decal fix underneath. Oh no. It was so lubed up that it just, I'm making an absolute mess of this. Here I was thinking after last night I was somewhat competent at decals. I was ready to make a video on it. Boy, did I have another thing coming. I might have to fast forward to 10 minutes in the future when I've fixed this one. I like it. So now I'm going to put on some of the decal softener just to make sure I'm just dabbing it on instead of wiping it on, where I'm going to potentially move the decal. So I'm just going to let that sit for a minute while it softens it, and then I start on the next one. All right, so now I think that's good. I'll start with the ones that I did first, so that way I know the medium, everything is dry and ready to go. So we're going to get Old Mate's matte medium. You could also varnish at this stage, but I want to varnish after I've done everything else, my weathering and stuff. So yeah, we're going to, don't know if you have to water this down. I mean, it's on a wet palette, so it's over time it does water itself down a little bit, I guess. We're just going to paint this over the decal and the whole thing and a little bit around the outside to take off the sheen, to make it a little bit more matte and help blend it into the surface below, which we'll obviously do more of pretty soon when we start doing the weathering. We've done a fair bit, done most of the decals. We'll get onto the Invicta Warsuit and I'll show you through each of these ones. By the way, if you want to try your hand at applying some decals or weathering techniques like what's in this video, then most of the products that I use will be linked down in the video description. And as they're affiliate links, all those links will provide me a small kickback at no extra cost to you. All right, so it's getting hot in here. So take off all your clothes. But also my daughter threw up on me, so I had to change. We're on to the weathering. I'm going to use the Invicta Tactical Warsuit for this footage because it's nice and big, easier for me to work with and easier for you to see. Now, the way I look at it, there's a few options when you're applying weathering. One is to go in with your highlight color, which is rust gray for me. This way it will show up in most of, if not all of the armor when we apply it. This is going to represent new or really shallow scratches and weathering. So little dings and scratches are going to be represented by this, and it's effectively the light catching the edges of those little dings and scratches. The second form or second stage of weathering is going to be when the damage goes all the way through the layers of paint and you see the bare exposed steel. So we're going to use our gunmetal metallic color, or you could go even brighter if you wish. But then there's a third level, and we can combine some or all of these methods, by the way, on the same minis to sell the best effect possible. It's when that same level of damage and weathering, where the metal is exposed, rusts and corrodes over time. So using some browns like Rhinox hide, maybe even a bit of Mournfang brown here and there, which is probably what we're going to try today. But because you'll notice some areas on the armor are going to be a lot duller, not as bright, and because we're trying to blend the decal into the armor, not just provide that battle damage, I will do some sponging using a bit of a blend between Dark Reaper and Rust Grey. So I have my very slightly damp sponge, which I have sucked most of the moisture out of, and we're just going to dab it in the edge. I'm going to start from the top, so we'll go the darkest color first, and we want to sort of dab off a bit of the excess paint just in case there's too much on there. So we're going to apply it kind of randomly over the top of the decal. You can see already that's starting to really obscure it, which is exactly what we want. So I'll move on to a different area so we can let that dry. And even though there's no decal here, I still want to weather in this white racing stripe, because this white paint sure ain't going to be all perfect, you know. So we want to make sure that's represented through this step. Gone slightly brighter with this mix this time, and again we're just going to place some kind of random chips and splotches. This one focusing a little bit more towards the bottom because it's the lighter part of the armor, and we'll do the same with this, focusing towards the upper ends where there is more of that shade. And if at any point you think you're going a little bit too far, with the chipping. I accidentally dragged the sponge that way and smudged quite a lot on there. So I'm gonna use another side of the sponge and make sure I don't have too much paint in there, and I'm gonna actually apply some of that white sponging over the top. And with the decals pretty well blended in across all the models, I then proceed to apply just a little bit of weathering on the rest of the armor panels. As I said before, using the highlight color rust grey for this. Getting a little bit of paint on the sponge, not too much, and then just gently dabbing off. Getting a little bit of paint on the sponge, not too much. Dabbing off just a little excess, and then lightly pressing into the desired areas. Like so. Think about the parts that are going to get the most wear and tear, maybe the bottoms of armor panels, but you know, you can let your imagination run free with this. Right, so as you can see, it's looking pretty good. Weathering is well underway with the sponge. I've actually done a little bit of drawn on or brushed on highlights because I stuffed up the previous take and I'm going to have to refilm this, so I am refilming this right now. I decided to use Fenrisian Grey, which is the highest, like the brightest color and higher than my normal highlight color, purely because if I was going to use Rust Grey, which is my highlight color, as so much of the mini is Rust Grey or a part Rust Grey, it's not really going to show up very well. So we really want Fenrisian Grey in this case, maybe even like metallic color, but we'll use Fenrisian Grey. And that way we can do highlights on any part of the model or these little scratches you can see I'm doing, and it'll turn out, or it'll be visible. Oh, I'm serious, you wouldn't bloody believe it. I've changed again because it's been a whole day since I did the last step of the weathering. I didn't press record on the camera, so I did it all on camera for you to see, explained it all, and I didn't record it. But look, honestly, this stage is pretty simple. As you can see here, you know, we're focusing sort of on the downwards facing areas, the bottom corners and edges, a lot of, you know, where there's a sharp edge, things that are close to the ground as well, like the feet and the bottoms of the kneecaps and the ankle sort of bits. And then I went back in and I decided to do some on the metallic, the actual silver, which makes sense because it's bare steel. So, you know, if anything's going to be rusted and corroded, it's probably the bare steel, not just the stuff that's painted and probably got some protective coating on it. But yeah, so that makes sense. It sells the general effect that I want and I'm really happy with it. So this mini is pretty much done. I've just realized there's a couple details like the skull there that I haven't actually painted in white. Maybe the one on the back should be white, I don't know, but we're pretty much there. So yeah, I guess I'll do a little bit of a showcase on all the minis, including the inventory painted up. While you look at that little clip, I'm gonna sign out. So thanks so much for watching this video and for subscribing if you have. If you haven't, why not? Just hit sub. Yeah, no, I'm really pleased with it all. There will be more content on this Raven Guard army very soon. As you can probably see here, I have a bunch of stuff already assembled that is gonna take up some of the future content that I have lined up and that I've started preparing. So yeah, that's that, and I'll see you in the next one.